Chapter 1, Police in a Democracy, Part 3. Your textbook discusses various police systems. Historically, there have been three types of police systems. The oldest is the citizen police system. And so what we mean by citizen police system is pretty obvious. This is where citizens are taking care of policing themselves, almost like we do jury service, and we're expected to participate in the courts. Well, in this system, the citizens were expected in helping to protect the people and the property of a particular community. And so we can see examples of this going all the way back through history. I mean, we just have to look at biblical times, for instance, and we can see in the Old Testament we can find all kinds of stories of one clan protecting its people and its property, its land against another clan. As history progresses and we get into the Middle Ages, we're going to find, as we cover the history of policing in the next chapter, that we have the establishment of groups like the Night Watch and other kinds of citizen groups that have a more formal responsibility for protecting the community. But they're still very much amateurs. They don't have any training, they don't have any special skills. They're just citizens who are called upon to go out and look for any kind of harmful activities or happenstances, things such as maybe fires, or they find a person who is passed out in the street, and so it's their job to report it or to deal with that person. But again, it's very much amateurish. They're not professionals. They're not trained in crime fighting. They may not be very diligent. They may decide that they want to find a place to sleep instead of doing the patrol because it's rainy, it's snowy, it's whatever. And so the citizen police model worked while we had very small communities, but as cities grew, then we needed something more. But we still see evidence of citizen police in modern society. Occasionally we'll see neighborhood watches where groups of people from the neighborhood will go out and walk around the neighborhood and report anything that's suspicious to the police. But certainly we don't do citizen policing as much as we had done it historically. If we go back, 500 years, 1,000 years, it was much more prominent. Private police are also an institution that we see throughout history. So these are maybe more professional citizens. Maybe they were even soldiers, or they are soldiers who were paid by private entities, by people, by the king, by whomever, to protect that person or that person's property. And so we still have private police agencies today, very sophisticated ones. We have some that are carrying out paramilitary operations. So whether they're mercenaries or they're part of an agency, a private paramilitary type agency, they may be going to war-torn areas and fighting in battles or protecting people and property abroad in combat and dangerous areas. So for instance, in Afghanistan, Iraq, you'll see groups like Blackwater and other private policing agencies that are doing asset and personal protection in those areas. Private police obviously exist at a much more fundamental level. So, the stereotypical mall cop as played by Paul Blart in the movies. I mean, those mall guards are the example of private police. So maybe they're not doing real sophisticated work, but they are private police. So private security is a growing industry. Before there was a Secret Service, the Pinkertons, a very famous private security agency, protected Abraham Lincoln. They weren't the ones who failed on the night of his assassination, but they protected him when he first became president because there was no Secret Service to protect the president. Eventually that was created. So sometimes the private police predate the creation of an agency, a public agency that pretty much mirrors what the private police are doing. We saw that with the Pinkertons and the Secret Service. We'll see that when we talk about the history of the Pennsylvania State Police. They were preceded by the Coal and Iron Police of Pennsylvania, who were private police that were paid by the industrialists to protect their mines, their steel mills, etc., etc. But the most common form of policing today is public police. So these are what we think of when we think of police officers. They're professionals who are paid by the public through tax money, through the government to carry out police functions. And so we will discuss public police, obviously, throughout this entire course. And so I won't say a lot about them right now, but they're the third type of police system. The U.S. police system is unique in that it's characterized by extreme decentralization. And what we mean by decentralization is there's no single oversight agency that controls all of the police in the United States. Policing in the United States is very much local. You have your city police department, you have your state police department, we have federal police agencies. None of them are the bosses of the others. And so they all have to work within the law, but there isn't a central police agency that is responsible for overseeing all of the police departments in the United States. We see that in other countries. In the Netherlands, for instance, there is an agency that controls all of the police in the country. There are differences among, within this kind of system, there are differences from city to city, but all of the police in the Netherlands, all the Dutch police, report back to ultimately to one central police agency. We don't have that in the United States. So what this means is we don't have uniform policing throughout the United States. At least it's not as uniform as in countries where there is a central oversight agency. Instead, each police department has the possibility of being different from the other in quality and in services and in mission and all these kinds of things. The local police agencies set their own missions, determine their own priorities. Yes, they do have to have some uniformity. They do have to comply with the laws that may require certain training, that require certification, that require certain respect for individual rights when they're conducting searches and seizures or interrogating a suspect or whatever it may be. But overall, there's a lot of difference between police agencies in the United States because they each have their own chief, they have their own autonomy, they don't have to report to a core central agency. This also means that it's very difficult to implement change. If we want to make sure that we get rid of things like racial profiling or excessive force or corruption, we have to do it department by department. So we may have to have the FBI conduct an investigation, or maybe a state attorney general will conduct an investigation, or the police department themselves. We will have to have that investigation to see if that police department, individual police department, is complying with the law or not. If it's not, then we have to prosecute, we have to bring a lawsuit, we have to take whatever action needs to be, but it's on a case-by-case basis. We can't do like in the Netherlands and say from the central office, this is how all police departments are going to do things, and expect that it will be done, because all the police, regional police chiefs and city police chiefs report back to that one core agency. We don't have that in the United States. Yes, we have the Supreme Court issuing decisions that all police departments must follow, but we have to look at each police department to see if they're actually following the law. And we don't have any agency that can really order them to follow the law unless we bring a lawsuit. And so it becomes very difficult to implement change in the United States. In the U.S., we have various levels of law enforcement. We have the obviously federal law enforcement agencies, and this is, when we look at federal, state, and municipal, federal agencies by far are the smallest in terms of number of actual agents and number of agencies. And usually federal agencies have very specialized responsibilities. So they're not out there doing general patrol like we think of with a city police officer. The FBI isn't out patrolling the streets. Their job is to investigate crime, and so they're doing very specialized investigations, and they can only investigate certain crimes. It has to fall under federal law and under certain jurisdiction and under certain federal laws when they can come in. Other agencies may be responsible for the investigation until there's suspicion that there's a crime. So for instance, if there's a plane crash, the Federal Aviation Administration will investigate until they suspect that there's a crime. that maybe there was criminal activity or foul play, then the FBI will come in. So very specialized roles at the federal level. State police agencies, we're going to learn when we cover the history of policing that Pennsylvania had the first modern full authority state police agency. But that wasn't created until the early 1900s. But most states, if not all, have their own state police agencies. What kind of powers they have vary from state to state. Pennsylvania, for instance, our state police officers, our state troopers, have full police authority. They can investigate crimes, they can respond to crimes, and they obviously do traffic control as well. But in some states, the state police only do traffic-related patrol. So they're not doing general policing. They are not the police officers in rural communities where there are no other police officers. In Pennsylvania, the state police may be the only police agency in rural communities and small towns. Obviously, we have county policing agencies in the United States too. Typically, these are sheriff's departments. Now, when we discuss the role of the sheriffs in the next chapter, we'll see that sheriffs can vary in their powers according to which region of the country we're in. In the South, sheriffs are often doing full law enforcement, also in the West. In the Northeast, they're mainly just serving papers for the court and doing other administrative duties. Municipal police agencies are the largest number of agencies. These are city and town police departments. And so they have the greatest number of personnel and they have the greatest number of agencies in the United States. We also may have tribal police departments on Native American lands and reservations. These agencies can collaborate with each other either officially or unofficially, so they may form official joint task forces or other kinds of joint efforts, or they may unofficially just cooperate with each other in various details. So think about Penn State football games. We have tons of different agencies, it seems. You know, we have the State College Police, the University Police, we have Patton Township, Ferguson Township, maybe other townships. We have maybe some federal agencies there. And so they're working together even if there isn't an official task force. The police roles and responsibilities. There are various expectations placed on the police from different sources. Legal expectations, we expect the police to live up to the laws. And so there are various legal expectations placed on the police, that they will follow the law. There are organization expectations. So your police department will place expectations on what they want out of their officers. What's proper behavior? What is improper behavior? These kinds of things. The community will expect certain things from their police. You know, what kind of professionalism do we expect? What kind of response? What kind of policing do we want? What kind of priorities should the police focus on? And then individual expectations. This refers to the individual officers. What do they think of their job as a police officer? What do they think as a police officer they should be doing? The roles that police serve. We're going to talk throughout this course about, are they crime fighters? Are they social servants? So are they doing crime fighting? Are they doing social service? Well, it depends on the particular locale. So is their main focus on stopping crime, or is it mainly on serving the public? In State College, it's mainly the second, serving the public. There isn't a whole lot of crime that the police are investigating, at least serious crime. So again, it depends on the municipality. Are they proactive or reactive? So by proactive, we mean, are they trying to prevent crime? Are they really trying to get ahead of the crime and try to figure out what causes it and prevent it before it happens? Or are they more reactive? They wait for that call to come in on the radio and they respond to crime. So they're not really trying to get ahead of it, they're mainly responsive. Discretion, this is the power to choose among different outcomes. So police have a great deal of discretion to decide what are they going to do with in a particular situation. Are they going to arrest? Are they going to warn? Are they just going to ignore it completely and not even respond to any kind of whatever wrongdoing that they see or improper behavior? So the police have a lot of discretion about how they're going to police, when they're going to police, and what they're going to police.